Ooh, welcome back to Amazin But True, our New York Mets podcast from the New York Post. Those highlights you heard are courtesy of Picks 11, and the New York Mets win 2 out of 3. It's Jake Brown here alongside former Met Nelson Figueroa. Joining us later in the show, be friend of the program, the manager of the last Mets team that made the World Series in 2015. We're doing a little looking down memory lane and hoping that 7 years later we could get there, we could win, we could go down the Canyon of Heroes. Just picture this: Jake Brown, Nelson Figueroa on a float with Buck Showalter down the Canyon of Heroes, drinking champagne, drinking wine, drinking Ciroc. I don't know, any kind of vodka that's near us.
Ciroc. Ciroc is like
Ciroc boys,
12 years ago. Ciroc.
Yeah, well, Ciroc's still good. Yeah, you're drinking down the, just picture in your head right now. Just close your eyes, Figgy. I want you to close your eyes. As Josh intern says, Casamigos. If Casamigos, we won't make it to the end of the ceremony.
Yeah, that'd be a quick. That's a quick parade.
We'll be down the Borough Hall, just rolling over. It's November 7th. The New York Mets are celebrating their third World Series title, the first since 1986. And look, there's a wild Nelson Figueroa on the run. Well, Figgy, it was a great weekend. The offense was good. We'll talk with Terry Collins a little bit later, but finally this team showed us they could score a lot of everything falling every week as my mic almost falls here. They scored more runs than the Jets did points. I did a Jets post-game show, and Pete Alonso, man, he had like a dry spell, I guess we'll call it, when people are like, oh, he's struggling, he's striking out so much. People got to realize, Figgy, it's a long season. And him and Lindor are hitting at a rapid pace. Lindor's over 100 ribbies. And now Pete Alonso, congratulations. The Mets all-time single-season RBI record. He gets 125. He finishes the day with 5 RBIs, makes it 128. Boy, is the polar bear good. It's only right that a polar bear has more RBIs than any human being in Mets history.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact that Lindor, who people said, why do you pay this guy this much money? He's overpaid, blah, blah, blah. He also sets the record for Mets shortstops and RBIs, and he's got 103 RBIs now. His batting average is up over 275 now. Everything is clicking right for those two guys at the right time, and that's what you really need down the stretch. And it's very rare for a 3 and 4 hitter to have so many RBIs, because usually one guy's cleaning it up and the other guy, is watching him circle the bases or trying to just drive him in. But these guys have been just relentless all year long on opposing pitching. Lindor, you can see his at-bats are so much better than last year. His swings are so much better. He gets mistakes and he doesn't miss them. Just a fantastic offensive series. And to be expected offensive series against the Oakland A's. The one question mark, of course, was Jacob Degrom's performance.
Yeah, are you worried? What do you think of that? He, gives up 5 homers, giving up long ball, giving them up early. Is that like a fatigue thing? What happened against a bad team?
So here's the fatigue thing, right? It's 100 miles an hour still. So it's not a physical fatigue, right? He's making pitches. Again, he's been very predictable as far as the way he's worked hitters. He's been away with fastballs to right-handed hitters and going up and down the body line, which is inside on a lefty. And he works on that one side of the plate. The Oakland A's, again, they were very aggressive against him, and he was missing the strike zone just, slightly. Angel Hernandez never helps, because that gets in your head as a pitcher, because now I got this ass clown of an umpire, and everything that I make as a close pitch, it gets questioned. So you think the respect factor would be there for Jacob Degrom to be able to say one thing, and he just said it in passing. He didn't make a big deal. He didn't throw up his hands. He didn't try and show up Angel Hernandez, but Angel Hernandez, of course, had to show, who's in charge by, trying to speak down to Jake and then yelling at Buck and just making a mockery of the game, as he always does. I think for me, that game is totally different if McNeil doesn't fall down. McNeil doesn't fall down, it's 1 run he gives up in that first inning. 1 run rather than 4 runs. And that changes the complexion of the game totally. Yes, they get some home runs, some guys that you don't know the name of. And that's something that has to do with preparation, right? That's something that has to do with, you don't know much about the Oakland A's. If you could find me 3 Met fans on the planet that could name the Oakland A's batting lineup, or their starting lineup, I'd give you $1,000. That it wouldn't happen, right?
If you knew Vimael Machin and Connor Capel before this series,
Connor Capel had no home runs before this series. Now he has 3. So he made the most of it. He got pitches to hit, and that's what you expect. Some of those guys will get pitches to hit because you don't expect them to do much. He took advantage of it. He hit some home runs. I get that. But for me, if McNeil doesn't fall down and Angel Hernandez, is it a questionable pitch? Could it go on either way? Of course it can. And usually that goes to the veteran guy, not to the, worst team in baseball, flailing away because he's going to be able to stay on top of him with the strikeouts. He had 5 strikeouts, and that's nothing, like utterly impressive about it, but he wasn't sharp. He wasn't on. That's okay. You want a guy to be able to struggle and then get out of it and work on things. And nobody works on things harder than Jacob Degrom. His bullpen sessions will be impeccable. There'll be guys watching his bullpen sessions to see how this guy rights the ship. And I think that's a very important thing, not only for him, but for the rest of the staff. You had to have guys come in and try and figure out a way to keep the game as close as possible and not let it get out of hand. And it got out of hand. So what? You crumble it up, you throw it away. They won the series. And I know people are like, oh, you need to do more than that. The Braves. No, you need to win the series. And then you need to continue to win every single series, including the Braves series, and you're fine. You win the division. There's nothing wrong with learning from the hard times, especially when the offense originally was struggling moving into this. Now the offense is clicking a little bit better. Mark Cannon needs some rest badly because he's running on fumes. Marte, we don't know if he's going to come back or not. They're saying the structural damage isn't nearly, is not as bad, but he can play, pain tolerance kind of thing, and we'll see what he's able to do. I think for me, all in all, they won 2 out of 3. They won the series, and I'm looking forward to the next week of Mets baseball.
Jacob Degrom, Saturday was the first time since May 2019 that he's given up 5+ runs, Figgy, 60 starts. So, and
even better, never in his career has he given up 4 runs in the first inning. Never.
Yeah.
So again, when all those things happen, that's the one people calling it, it's like a blue moon kind of thing. No, this is like Halley's Comet. Okay. You're talking about a guy who's never been attacked this way, never given up runs this way. But it's good. You want somebody to be able to take a punch in the mouth, be able to shake it off, and then regroup.
And Figgy, he broke the MLB record He broke the MLB record streak of 40 straight starts, giving up less than 3 runs. So he's been dominant. So let's just hope it's just one little, what's the saying? Hole in the radar.
Blip in the radar.
Blip in the radar. I gotta start reading more books. Also, you seem to have a beef with Angel Hernandez from your past. You called him an ass clown. You said some other things. Did Angel Hernandez give you bad calls over your career? That
I listen. I had to deal with enough with just getting major league hitters out. I didn't care who was behind the plate. It didn't matter to me. But Angel Hernandez has a history of this. I was just watching the other day how in a World Series game he blew 3 calls at first base. Blew 3 calls at first base, missed 3 calls in a World Series game. That is inexcusable. That's the reason why Angel Hernandez will not be in a playoff game or a World Series game. Doesn't matter about his tenure or how long he's been doing it for. I think everyone knows. I think all of baseball knows that, when you talk about bad officiating, bad umpiring, Angel Hernandez is usually right in the middle of it. And remember, not even, what was it, a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, the ball that gets in the gap goes under the wall, and Nimmo's running around, gets to third, and he calls it a ground rule double from home plate. He's the guy furthest away, but always Angel Hernandez thinks he can go above and beyond and make himself a spectacle. So I think that's the beef I have with him as a baseball fan.
Well, guess what? It's lined up beautifully. After we won't dive too much more in a series against Oakland because it doesn't matter, but like we said earlier, don't forget the Marlins. The Marlins have doomed us in late September in the past. You know it well in 2008. Mm-hmm. So these are 2 big games. Like, everyone's like, I see the predictions. Like, you do this, you only need to win 1 against the Braves. But, like, that's factoring in you sweep the Marlins. That's factoring in you hopefully sweep the Nationals to close the season. If they lose a couple of those, then it gets dicey this weekend. Remember, the Braves face the Nationals this week and starting Monday night. So they win, they get it down to a game, and then the party begins. All the Mets need to win a tiebreaker is to win one of the three against the Braves, but you'd like to win them 2 or 3 because, you win one and the Braves keep winning, things are going to get dicey and you're going to be forced to win games against the Nationals. And listen, your hope was that when you do face the Nationals, maybe you have a clinch where you can rest guys. You would love to be able to give guys a day. I know you're going to get rest if you win the division. That's more important, but you love to give a guy a day. You love to get Marte back here, and it sets up for the big weekend. And next Sunday from the Ocean Resorts Casino, we'll have to be at the blackjack table in one inning and be in the podcast the next. We'll do the Amazin But True podcast from Ocean. So if you're in South Jersey, if you're a Mets fan in Philly who is surrounded by these Phillies fans and who don't like fundamental defense, come to the Ocean Casino. It's actually a beautiful resort. I'm excited. They've renovated the sports book. It's going to be a beautiful weekend there. I have a wedding Saturday. I actually ran into Luke. We talked about Luke on the video version because it didn't make the final cut. Sorry, Luke. I saw Luke in the streets Saturday night, the week before his wedding. I don't know if that's good or bad karma. Seeing a man a week before his wedding.
Jake Brown dropping dime on Luke.
Yeah, he's in the distance. He's like, "Is that Jake?" And I'm like, "Yes, it is." So and listen, it seems like Buck outsmarted us all because it lines up perfectly where you get not only get playoff preview this weekend, you're getting Bassett, Degrom, Scherzer, likely that order, and those are your 3 horses, Figgy. So your hope, if you lose Friday, you hope DeGrom recovers Saturday, and you hope Scherzer just keeps pitching like he does. I mean, he's just been fantastic. He had the perfect game when he comes back, and they have to pull him because they have a pitch limit on him. I'm sure he went the whole way. He's throwing the first ever Mets perfect game, the way he was pitching. It's unfortunate, but you get it. The game, the games down the stretch are more important. But you're seeing Max Scherzer, why Terry will talk about it, why you've talked about it, why he might be your game 1 guy come October. And it's not a bad thing to have DeGrom come in there, back him up for game 2. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's lining up perfectly with your 3 kind of playoff starters going in Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, either way, right? You go game 1, that guy gets the victory, and then game 2, it could be either Max Scherzer or Jacob DeGrom, arguably top 5 pitchers of the last decade. 2 of the top 5 pitchers of the last decade, and they're going back to back against you right out the chute. That's an amazing 1-2 punch to have. Talking with Terry and knowing Terry for so long, the rest down the stretch it's important, but is it as important as winning the division? Because you're going to get that extra rest. So you're going to have to, really check with guys. You have to ask guys, how you feeling? How's it going? Watch guys and monitor, their swings, their at bats, if they're a little lethargic. McNeil flopping all over the place, having to play so many games in a row. Those things are a little bit of a factor because you want to be able to rest guys. The Mets also are very fortunate. They have an off day today. They have an off day on Thursday.
That's
so
true.
That works out great for the Mets. So you really don't have to force anyone to take time off. You really don't have to force to inject anyone in the lineup. You kind of keep it status quo as you can to keep these guys as I would say sharp as possible. Also, if anybody needs that, you feel very confident about who's going to be the next man up. I think Escobar has changed the narrative. From a guy that you were like, let's get rid of him, to a guy that if he's playing in the lineup, you're okay with it. You can see that this guy still has value. He's been, very good. Even when the offense has been slumping, he's been able to turn it on. Guillorme being back with his, the web gems that he keeps being able to produce. He's such a valuable part of this team. So I think just getting all these guys to start to click a little bit as you move into this final stretch is just huge, because the Mets are in the playoffs. We know that. So whether they're going to be the wild card, which makes unbelievable, weird sense to be the wild card, or if they're going to be the division winner, that to me is the biggest thing. They can win that division. They can breathe a little sigh of relief. You set up your rotation the way you need it set up. And I think having those 3 horses going down in Atlanta sets you up as good as it can possibly get to do exactly what you need to do, and that's put the Braves in the rearview mirror and win the division.
And listen, it'll be frustrating if they do not win the division. Of course, we're not going to quit because they're going to be a 100-win team that wins a wild card. But, we're all locked in. Of course, his freaking wedding and the ceremony right during the damn game. So you better believe I'm going to have my phone charged up and watching that game I'm going to be on the dance floor like, what's going to come? Celebrate good. That's a 3-run homer from Pete Alonso, and the Mets take the lead in the 9th inning. I don't know why I chose celebrate good times, but that's like a wedding. So I'm going to be mid electric slide during.
That's the Mets. That used to be the Mets celebration song in Shea Stadium.
You know what I'm going to request? If Diaz comes in,
Marco,
Timmy trumpets on the dance floor. That will be. I will get that on video. I'll have the game on the phone, me dancing. I'll have someone take a video, and as he's getting the save, we'll play Timmy trumpet. We'll play Narco with our guys Blaster Jacks.
I like how you think you're going to take over someone else's wedding and have them play Narco. I'm sure
the Amazin But True wedding.
Yeah, I'm sure the bride will love that. No, not what she wants, not her playlist, not her band. No. Jake wants Narco, and that's going to happen.
Well, it's going to happen. Well, Luke is a diehard Mets fan, so I think he will make that happen. He will accommodate my request, and we'll make it happen. So let's hope it's a safe situation, and we can get that going Saturday night. It'll be towards the end of the ceremony, so last dance. We interrupt this moment, this bride and father moment with Timmy Trumpet. Here's Narco.
God, you have zero feel, bro. Zero feel.
I'm actually pretty pleasant realizing that this is a possibility of happening. I wasn't sure the party. Now I know. Anyways, well, who cares about that? No one cares about where I'm going to the wedding, but you do care about coming to Ocean Sunday night. But guess what? This is playoff push. This is it, and this is what we'll talk about Terry Collins in a minute. You know, you live for this. You're locked in. Like, people ask me, what are you doing this day? I have to watch every one of these games. Every one of these games is pivotal, including Tuesday and Wednesday. I know, listen, tickets are cheap. If you're listening to this, go on Tuesday and Wednesday, go support the team against the Marlins. Let's hope the weather holds up. I was getting very congested Saturday. This went down to 50 degrees. It's a low of 58. Sorry, this became the Al Roker podcast here, and a low of 54 Wednesday, high of 70. So the weather will be good enough. Get your hoodies out, Figgy. Get your Mets hoodies out. It's hoodie season. Huge week ahead. And shout out to Mark Vientos. Let's give him a round of applause. Yeah. His first career home run. And man, if he comes around and he could be part of a playoff roster as an extra bat, not a bad extra guy to have. Terrence Gore, dive and catch. He's playing a part not only in the base path, but in the field. And something that I love about Buck, from early on, Figgy, is that he said, I want to implement all my guys. I want every one of these guys playing in that first week. Remember, we're like, why is he playing this guy? This guy's playing. You feel every player, like from the Jankowski and Gore to the Alonso and Lindor. Oh, that kind of rhymed. It was kind of fun. That was like a little.
Oh, here we go.
Drop a quick freestyle. You're feeling 1 through 28, 1 through 29, 1 through 40. All these guys are playing a part, and Buck said that from day one, and you could say that he's lived up to that.
Yep. No, and that's a huge thing as a player. You're not just there watching the games. You're not just watching down the stretch. You're taking part in it. So you're having to be prepared. You're having to be on your A game because you never know when you might be called upon. So everybody knows that they have a role on this team. Everybody knows that, they might be called on at a moment's notice. I think there's certain truths that you're looking at down the stretch, because I told you, Buck would allow you to play yourself into a role and out of a role. Darren Ruff, out of a role. Mark Vientos possibly into his role as being that right-handed DH guy in the lineup. All the different things that Buck has been able to do and balance. And there's always, I think that's the biggest word to use with Buck Showalter. There's always a balance, right? There's always a reason why he's doing something. This isn't just, the computer says, my index card says, or we already had it pre-planned that, 2 days on, 2 days off kind of thing. No, I think he goes by his gut feel on how players are doing. I think he also goes by his gut feel of who he wants to insert into the lineup at certain times. There's still that old-fashioned lefty-righty matchup kind of thing. I get that. But at the same time, I think he has so many options at his disposal, and we talked with Terry about that, is that whatever cards that you have, that's how good you can be as a poker player. You can't be a good poker player with 2s and 3s, but if you have a decent hand, you can make something work out of it. There's always looking at the table, knowing what's coming, knowing what's been out there. That's what a guy like Buck Showalter does. He's a mastermind at doing all the little things that wind up being big things in the long run. And I think the way that he has had every guy kind of, hey, I know it's been a couple of days since you played, but be ready. You're in there tomorrow, or you might pinch hit in a certain, in a certain situation. Be ready. All these guys look as if they're not shocked that they're being called on. And it's like, hey, Guillorme, get a bat. No, Guillorme has a bat in his hand already. You don't have to tell these guys what to do. They already have a feel way in advance.
I'm going to call Guillorme Mr. Barehand. I mean, that can mean multiple things, but Mr. Barehand, Figgy, because he's unbelievable when he just picks it up barehand and then throws it. And not only does he throw it, he throws like an absolute, laser tag and great neck. Like just, like he just like throws it sidearm, a laser. He's been fantastic to watch. If he played enough games, I mean, he'd be a shoo-in for a Gold Glove if he was an everyday player. He's been fantastic. As we look, Figgy, we'll go to Terry Collins in a minute, just setting it up here for the playoff run. You have to remember this, too. The Mets are 4 back of the Astros for the same record as them. And why that plays a factor is the Mets, remember, All-Star game doesn't determine home field in the World Series. Record does. Yep. Astros have head-to-head. They spanked us. So if they end up playing us, we're in trouble. But if we play the Astros, Mets are 4 back, but lose the tiebreaker. So essentially, they're 5 back. The Astros get Arizona, Tampa, and then Philly. So that's going to be interesting. If Tampa and Philly, who are good teams, could find a way to beat the Astros, the Mets find a way to win out. That's just a scenario. We got to win the freaking division first. But keep in the back of your mind what the Astros are doing. If we want Citi Field to be rocking for 4 times instead of 3 into November. Right now, if the standings stayed the same, Viggy, the Mets would play the winner of the Cardinals and Phillies. They would get the bye. They win the division 2 seed. The Braves Padres winner would face the Dodgers. Now, if the Phillies and Padres flip-flop, the Mets would face the winner of Cardinals Padres. And then it would be Phillies versus Braves, a little divisional battle. So and then if the Mets get the wild card, Figgy, then things get a little dicey. The Mets would play the Padres likely, or Phillies, whoever. So it's 4 versus 5. The Mets would be the 4 seed. So I know that sounded confusing. It's not that confusing, but just looking at the bracket. If it stays the same, Mets win the division. Lock it in. Tuesday, October 11th, Citi Field, game 1 of the NLDS. We'll see what happens this week. Beat the Braves. Huge games. You got your horses going this week. 2 in Miami. Off Monday, off Thursday. You're going to get a little Walker. You're going to get a little Cookie. And hopefully there's 2 Cookie wins. And you set yourself up for an epic week. Because, listen, the Braves are probably sweeping the Nationals. Let's get us 1. The Phillies, I tweeted, please win 2 out of 4. They did. So we'll take that. But if we could get 1 national win over the Braves, it sets up for what could be a historic weekend in Atlanta. Well, coming up next, a guy who has some history with the Mets, more games managed than any Mets manager ever. That's Terry Collins. He's going to join Amazin But True next. All righty. Joining us now on Amazin But True is a friend of the program. He's managed more games than anyone else in the history of the Mets with over 1,000. That's 1,134 over 7 seasons. You can now see him on SNY, and you'll hear him sometimes on the Mets radio broadcast on WCBS 880. He managed the Mets to their last trip to the World Series. They hope to do it again in just a few short weeks here. Let's welcome back TC, Terry Collins. Terry, is your ass in the jackpot or is your ass in a Lexus right now? Which one?
It's in a Lexus right now, but I'm heading into a golf tournament, so maybe I'll be in the jackpot later.
You golf a lot these days. What's your golf game like? What are you golfing?
Oh, my handicap's a 6, so it's okay. I love to play. It's great, and I'm gonna get a chance to see Lou Piniella today, so I'm really excited about that. And there'll be a few other guys here, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Figgy, your handicap is not a 6, right? What is yours? Yours is bad.
My handicap is still called a handicap. That's the problem. I hit golf shots, TC. I'm a golf shot maker still. The full game hasn't flourished.
That's okay. That's all right.
You have to practice a lot. The putting, right? It's the putting. It's all about the putting.
Exactly, and that's what's fun about it. You can kind of get away from everything and just worry about making your swing. You don't have to worry about winning or losing. Just go have some fun. That's the best part.
Is this weird for you're preparing to go on a golf course on September 26th, where just a few short years ago, you were preparing for a playoff push? I mean, it's a lot less Tylenol needed, I guess, and a lot more sunshine, but is this strange for you right now?
Well, yeah, I've been out long enough now to where, it's this is what I do. But I certainly, I'm rooting for the Mets. I watch all the games, and I'm really excited for Buck and the guys. They've done a great job. I've done a few games on radio down in Miami, so I've got to see the team play, and they're really a fun team to watch.
Yeah, now that the team has made the playoffs, what's that like for you, that preparation leading up to the playoffs? Like, you want to have that balance of playing certain players and resting other players, correct?
Right. Now, that's what we try to do. But we also, we sewed up the division with maybe a week to go in the season, so it's a little easier to where right now, they got to win some games. They've still got, certainly the next 5 days. They need to win these games so that they can get a big enough lead. So the last 3 days, if they win the division, they can, give some guys off those last 3 days. Plus, they're going to get an off time because once they win the division, they've got some rest days. So I think the push right now, if I'm sure for Buck, is, hey, look, he's got to focus each and every night and win as many as he can, and work. If you win the division, you got a lot of days to rest, guys.
You were a 90-win team that year. 90 wins might not even get you in the playoffs today. Like, this year, it's crazy, Terry, with this divisional race. The Braves are on their neck right now.
It's been amazing. I will tell you, the Mets have played great all season, and nobody could have ever expected it, even though we knew the Braves were good. But that run they had for the last 2 months has been, off the charts. They just don't lose. And when they do, just like this last week, they finally lost 3 games in a row all season. First time they've done it all season long. So it's going to be exciting. I'm even thinking about going up to Atlanta next weekend just to watch the series.
Yeah, to take it all in as a fan is a little bit different. Not as much pressure right there, but it's definitely an exciting time to be a Met fan. My other question for you right now is, with the rotation that the Mets have, who do you have set up in a best-of-5 series?
Well, with what I've seen from Jake right now, obviously you're going to open up the season. You're going to open up I'm sure the playoffs. You can't go wrong no matter if you start with Max or you start with Jake, followed by the other guy, followed by Bassett. And after that, I don't know who Buck's got on his, who he wants to be the 4th starter, but the other guy is going to go in the bullpen, and that's just going to make the bullpen even better. But, I don't, it's really their starting pitching is so good that I think in a 7-game series, it's really going to be tough to beat those guys twice each.
Terry Collins is managing the 2022 Mets. Game 1, he gives the ball to.
Right now,
Right
now, I'd started out with Max, followed by Jake.
And then Game 3, Bassett. And then do you go back? Figgy brought this up, a good point, that Degrom we haven't seen. Can he go on that short rest? Do you throw Max out there for another Game 4, and then you go Degrom Game 5, or do you throw a Cookie or a Taijuan Walker in Game 4?
I think you got to throw a Cookie or a Taijuan Walker. All
right, we're back with Terry, who's moved locations because he's so overheated. I've never had that in mid-interview, so check that off my 2022 Mets bingo card.
You guys probably have all that modern equipment. I'm going with an old phone, so.
Yeah, I mean, look at that simulated. I mean, Figgy is actually standing right outside Citi Field right now. You wouldn't believe it. He's not in New Jersey. He's actually in Flushing at the moment. It's technology in 2022. We were talking about, Max Game 1. You like Degrom Game 2. You like Bassett Game 3. And you say don't go to Max Game 4. You say throw a Cookie or a tie out there.
Yeah, again, with what's happened with Max, with the 2 oblique issues that he's had, the one thing you can't afford to do is cause an injury right now. So I still think you got to be careful and give him that extra day and try to bring him back on as much rest as you can.
Yeah, and I agree. I think there's just so many ways to use it. We talked about this since the days of you managing the Mets. No matter how good of a manager you are, you're only good as the cards that you're dealt. These cards are truly, when you have 2 aces at the top like that, and then you have guys who have been very good throughout their careers. And you're talking about a Cookie Carrasco who's been a top 10 pitcher over his career, a top 10 pitcher. I think people forget that. And he's really found it this year using that changeup and everything else. There's no way you can go wrong to mix and match unless you're down in the series and you're desperate. I think the Mets are poised to go deep into the playoffs. And like you said, I think it's a huge factor not to abuse anybody too early because you might only have one shot at this run.
That's right. And again, with what Jake, he's just getting back in, where he's getting on 4 days rest, which is what his normal routine would be. And I don't think you need to rush him. I don't think that's going to be good for him. I think if the more days off he can get, the better he's going to be.
Managing Degrom in 2015 versus now, Buck's going to have decisions to make, Terry. Like, you had one with Matt Harvey to make. You kept him, you threw him back out there for the ninth. We might not see Degrom go 9, but there's going to be interesting times where you're like, all right, do we throw him back out there for the 8th? He's at 100 pitches. He's tired, because we've been seeing, later in the starts, he's getting a little bit gassed, gives up a long ball. Last start in Oakland, we'll throw that out the window. That was ugly over the weekend. But, what do? You're a guy who's managed Degrom. What do you do late in games? Are you going to keep throwing him out there, or are you going Diaz 6-out save every time?
Well, I think you got to take a look at what the situation may be. 6-out saves, you can do that one time. I'm not sure you can do it back-to-back nights. So I think you've still got to rely on Lugo or one of those other guys. They got to give you some innings down there. That's their roles, and certainly they've got to bridge that gap between whoever starts and hopefully can give you 7, and you can mix and match your 8th innings to get you to Diaz in the 9th.
Now, going back to this golf tournament, do you even know who you're paired up with?
No, not yet. No, they just called me the other day and asked me if I'd come over. And certainly, it's always good to get over. Right. So I drove over from Port St. Lucie to Tampa this morning, and they're going to get a hurricane here in 2 days. So I got to get the golf tournament in and get out of town before that it comes in. So
Terry almost got run over.
They called him a ringer.
Terry almost got run over. There's a guy pulling up right behind him. Is this Lou Piniella? Is this anyone?
No.
Terry, as we look ahead to the playoffs, Buck Showalter's a manager. What has your interactions with him been like? What have you learned from him, if anything, over the years? Because I'm sure you guys have crossed paths many times.
Well, I've known Buck a long time, and he would, when I was managing in Anaheim, and when I resigned one year, Buck was the first guy to ever call me, and we talked about managing, and we talked about the passion for the game, and and Buck's got it. And one of the things that I think he does better than anybody is he is so prepared, and he's got a game plan going in. He sticks with it. A friend of mine was his pitching coach in Baltimore. My buddy's name was Dave Wallace, and Dave said Buck Showalter runs a bullpen as good as anybody he's ever seen. And I think you're seeing that this year. And what you're seeing right now late in the season is those guys are still fresh. He hasn't overdone it. He hasn't overused anybody. And so they're going to be 100% healthy going into the playoffs.
Yeah, one of the things I loved is there's no panic in Buck Showalter, even with the Braves right on their back the whole season. No matter how good the Mets are playing, you look back and the Braves win again. There was really no way to get a huge lead in this division, but there's no panic in a Buck Showalter. And I think that has been a huge factor, is to have somebody with managing experience, just like yourself, where the players aren't panicking either. That's a huge factor, is that those players can look up at the manager and realize that his wheels aren't spinning. He thinks everything is under control. So there's a calm in the clubhouse as well.
Nelly, you've hit it right on the head. Those guys come to the ballpark. They know this guy's ready. They know he's prepared. They know he's studied everything that needs to be studied. He's got a plan going in, and now it's just a matter of executing that plan. And I think that's what Buck does, and that's why I really believe when you got a manager like that, hey, look, you just go out and play, and let the manager take care of all the little stuff.
Late in the season, do you look to veterans to lead, to speak up, and to avoid sense of panic? The guy this year we would point to is someone like a Francisco Lindor, maybe a little bit of Pete Alonso. Did you look to your veteran leaders down the stretch to ride you guys through the playoffs?
Oh, absolutely. But, I had some great ones. I had David Wright, who was the captain at the time. And, Michael Kadire was here. We had Juan Uribe. We had Curtis Granderson. We had a plethora of quality veterans in our clubhouse that took care of the clubhouse issues and got everybody ready to play. And you've got to have those. You got to have that dynamic.
Yeah, without a doubt, the unselfishness of like a Michael Kadire, who saw Michael Conforto come up and take his job, and he realized, hey, that he makes this team better right now, But what could Michael Kadire do? He added valuable experience. He sat down on every single play, every single at bat, and talked with Michael Conforto and put him right under his wing to guide him along the way, even though he knew his role would be diminished. That's such a huge factor, because it's like having an extra coach, but it's a coach that the player can, really have a lot of confidence in and really not feel overwhelmed. Like, this guy's talking down to me. He's my peer. And I think that's a huge factor. The Mets don't have a team captain as of right now. Who would you think would be the next team captain?
I don't know. I think, again, I named David because he had so many years in, and, I got to know him, Nelly, and his respect for the game and how he prepared and how he looked at things. This guy, he came to the ballpark, and I used to watch, and he'd walk in the clubhouse, and when he walked in, everybody looked up. And that spoke volumes of how he was thought about. And I'm not in the clubhouse there, so I'm not really aware of who the next guy may be, but I will tell you, David made a difference on our club.
Have you been asked by Buck or a previous manager like Rojas to be on this coaching staff? And did you just say no, or were you not asked?
No, I was never asked.
What do you think about Sandy Alderson? And where do you think the Mets will go next year? Do you think Theo Epstein is finally coming to Queens?
I don't know. I have no idea. I just talked to Sandy the other day and congratulated him on the fact that he's retiring. He's really has changed the culture with the Mets and the way he's gone about things. You talk about a guy who's prepared and a guy who's got, knows what he wants to do each and every day. Sandy Alderson's that guy. And I'm sure he'll pick the guy with Steve Cohen and the guy who's going to replace him, whether it's Theo or whether it's the guy from Milwaukee, who everybody's talking, big thing about. They're going to pick out the right guy because, I will tell you, the Mets culture is a whole different thing now. And that's a job that a lot of people are going to covet.
And you notice that difference from Will Ponce Cohen? Like I imagine have been talking to Steve Cohen. We all feel it. You, as a guy who is inside of both sides of it, do you feel that difference?
Well, I had a great relationship with the Will Ponce. But I think Steve, with the fact that he's willing to spend the money that he's spending, and hey, look, don't let anything stop us from getting the right people there, the right dynamic as far as the general manager and the manager and the players. If you need to get the guy, go get him. And I think that's something that's really made a difference this year.
Yeah, and I think also with changing the culture, Steve, being such a fan, realized that there were some deficiencies, right? There was no, I think the appreciation for the former player, having that old timers game, just having guys come around the ballpark and be involved a little bit more as former players. I think Steve Cohen has changed that a little bit, having the statue for, that he's doing, all the different things that I think he's doing to make it more of a Mets feel at Citi Field rather than, just a baseball feel. I think that's huge component because the fans have bought in majorly and they've supported this team from game one. Even when guys, have been struggling, you got Lindor, who was still batting 230. You've got Escobar, who's been batting 210. You look all around and the Mets have done well, but I think the fan support is at another level this year because of an owner like Steve Cohen.
I know there's no doubt. I think, I've talked to the players when I've got to be around the club, and they bring up his name all the time about, how they can go to him and they can give a thought or an idea and it's accepted and it's listened to it. And, as Nelly, as a player, I've always said, don't think players are naive. They know what's going on. They have a feel for things. And when their ideas are listened to, it really makes a difference for them and how they approach things.
That must have been awesome for you, Old Timers Day. It was awesome for us hanging around and being around the guys. How awesome was that for you, getting to see guys you coached and guys of your past and maybe guys you even played with back in the day?
Well, it was a great experience, and I was very, very lucky that they asked me to come. But I had Sid Fernandez when he was 19 years old with the Dodgers, and and those and of course to see Murph and to see Reyes and Bartolo. Those guys meant a lot to me and a lot to my success in New York, and to be around the guys that I really didn't know, who I was on the other side of the field against a lot, and to see how their passion of being baseball fans and certainly Mets fans, but that response from the crowd, the fans that were, we pulled up in the bus and there were 15,000 people waiting for the buses to pull up, and that just shows you the passion in New York for baseball.
Will the 2022 Mets win the World Series? I
think so. I do believe that. I think in a short series, when you got that dynamic pitching that the Mets have, and you're going to get your players a chance to rest up, I think they're going to be awfully tough to beat.
All right, be right back, Terry. I'm going to go run through my local brick wall after you pump me up saying the Mets are going to win the World Series. Well, good luck on the golf course today. Thanks for coming on Amazing But True, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care. Good to talk.
Thanks, TC. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, Figgy, we're down the stretch run. That says goodnight to episode 123 of Amazing But True, our Mets podcast from the New York Post.
Thanks to you, Jake and Josh Crawford, for producing the show. Catch up with the episodes of Amazing But True by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple or on Spotify. Write a nice review, please, on Apple. Follow us on Twitter at Amazing But True, at FiggyNY, and at Jake Brown Radio.
Figgy, you're off now this week. Will you be coming to Mets Marlins on Tuesday and Wednesday?
You never know. Definitely, those are the two games that I think there's a lot of tickets left. You said, where do you want to sit? Maybe by the Coca-Cola corner again?
I don't think I've
Jazz.
sat there.
Maybe Jazz Chisholm can give you another souvenir.
Yeah, Jazz, you want to hit me another? I've gotten bougie this year. I feel like I don't leave the Delta Club anymore. I'm just hanging in there. People are like, "Come meet up with me." I'm like, "It's hot outside. Come here." I don't. Now it's chilly, so now it's too cold. So now I'm like, "God, it's too cold out there." Let me. I gotta become an actual normal sitting fan again. I forgot what it feels. I haven't sat an upper level, I don't think, all year.
You've changed, bro.
Field level or bust. He's done changed. What movie is that from? I forget. Last week, 2 games, big week. Go beat the Marlins. For Nelson Figueroa, I'm Jake Brown. We'll be back next Sunday night live after Mets Braves. If you're a night owl, if you're watching football all day, if you're in South Jersey, come on out. Come to the sports book at the Ocean Resorts Casino. We will be there recording. The show will drop Monday morning, 5 a.m. You'll have a fresh episode. We'll get it out quick after the huge series. Beat the Braves. Let's go. Beat them. For Nelson Figueroa, Josh Crawford, I'm Jake Brown. We'll see you next Monday. We'll see you live Sunday around 11 p.m. at Ocean Resorts Casino. Just come over to the sports book and come hang with us at Amazing But True. Let's win this damn division. Sweep the Braves. And as always, Figgy, let's
go Mets.
That was terrible. Blame the Zoom delay. We'll see you Sunday.